I'm going to talk about transformation. And, I think because there's so many different ways we can approach transformation, different paths we can take, I really thought about the issue is there a common factor underpinning all of the approaches to transformation? And what I realized is I think there really is. And the common denominator or factor that starts it all is self-responsibility. So I'm going to talk about what that is. And I know it may sound a little daunting or dry, but self-responsibility actually is the key to feeling empowered, to feeling free. So let's dig into it a little bit more about what is this self-responsibility. And I think most of us as children were introduced to it in terms of our actions. So our parents would say things like, did you put your clothes away? Did you do your chores? Did you do your homework? They were pointing to the actions that they wanted to see us do and were holding us accountable to that. And so that's one level of self-responsibility. But it's probably not long before some of you heard things like, did you think of this? Why didn't you think about that? Etc. And now parents are bringing in that element of how do we think that links to what we do? And are we thinking ahead? Etc. So we start to progress from actions, like I remember my mother saying, if all your friends jumped off the bridge, would you jump too? She was just saying, are you just going to follow actions? Please start thinking is what she was really saying to me. And so how do we step into that responsibility for our thoughts? That's the next level. And that's really a sophisticated concept. Yes, we may be introduced to it when we're children, but it's not something that we really naturally take to. And the ability to stop and go inside and go, okay, what am I thinking? Is not an easy thing unless you've trained yourself to do it. And the next level of responsibility brings in feelings. Can we really take responsibility for our feelings? Because they're linked to what we're thinking. If I'm thinking sad, miserable thoughts, it's guaranteed that I'm going to be feeling the feelings that go with that. And my body is going to respond chemically with the chemicals that go with those thoughts and feelings. So when we look at feelings, it's very interesting for us to pull back from self-responsibility. How many of you have said, she made me mad, he hurt my feeling, it's not fair? We're placing the responsibility outside ourselves. We're really saying something or someone outside of ourselves is making us feel a certain way. Well, when we do that, we've now forfeited our own power. So now I want to talk about an even more sophisticated level of thinking when we come to feelings. And because I think it's fairly easy for us to understand if I think a certain way, I'm going to feel certain feelings that match that. But what if I generate feelings in order to do a certain action? This is a whole nother level. And so I'm going to give you an example. I think we often will work ourselves up to a level of frustration or anger in order to then say exactly what we want to say. And in my life, I had a lot of conditioning and training, to be polite and to be nice and so on. And so for me, saying exactly what I want to say in the degree of frustration I want to say it was not an easy thing to do. But if I generated enough upset and thought about this enough that I could really get the feelings going, then sometimes I would give myself permission to say what I wanted to say. And I think this also happens when we drink alcohol, for example. Yes, I know there's the chemical factor and how it lets us be less inhibited. But underneath, I think, well, first of all, we're choosing to drink. But secondly, we know the effect and we know what's going to happen. And if there's something a person wants to say to someone, under the guise of alcohol, it can be the opportunity. And so I just want to offer that as food for thought. Are we creating feelings in some situations so we can act or behave or say what we want? Well, the last level of responsibility I want to touch on is physiology, because I've been saying that actions link to what we're thinking and feeling, but so does our body respond. And so the question becomes, how much self-responsibility can we take for our physiology? And I know that can seem like a very tough idea, maybe a ridiculous idea for some people, because it doesn't feel often like we have direct link or control of our physiology or what's going on in our body. Maybe it's migraine headaches. Maybe it's a chronic acid reflux or a stomach thing. But what we know from psychology and what we know from nutrition, we've had more than a decade of understanding the link between illnesses and physical symptoms and issues. It could be fibromyalgia, it could be other things. There's a really powerful connection between how we're living, how we're thinking, how we're feeling, and what our bodies are doing. And so that's a level of self-responsibility that is really important if you're facing some issue that has a physical component. So I wanted to wrap all this back to this issue of transformation. We started there with what's the underpinning in this journey of transforming. Because so many of us are aware we don't want to just grow, we really want to transform and change and really improve the quality of our lives or how we show up or the person we want to be. And so I'm offering that the underpinning is self-responsibility. We need to start there and see if we can really step in and take ownership for the things that we do have influence and control over. And that opens internally the spaciousness to actually then try on much bigger ideas that are involved in transformation.